Summertime is almost here, and I know a lot of you IBS sufferers are going on vacation soon. Well, I'm going to provide you with some tips that I believe will help you feel less anxiety while on your travels. So here we go. What's good, peeps? It's your boy Hes P bringing you another dosage of positive vibes. So when it comes to traveling, I know a lot of us IBS sufferers usually get a lot of anxiety because we're always thinking about the possible worst case scenarios when it comes to our condition, right? We're always thinking about the what ifs. For example, what if I really need to use the toilet but I can't find one in time? Or what if I end up eating something that ends up triggering my symptoms throughout the entire trip? What if I have uncomfortable, intense gas pain while I'm sitting next to a stranger on an airplane? The list goes on, and these are our painful and embarrassing truths. Traveling and vacationing are supposed to be stress-free and relaxing. So it's important, especially as IBS sufferers, that we do our best to stay on top of those things. IBS is a brain-gut disorder, which means our symptoms can be triggered by depression, stress, and anxiety, just like they can with certain food. So the few travel tips that I'm going to provide will help you manage both your physical and mental health when it comes to IBS. Some of these tips might be common sense to some of you, but it's not always common practice. So get out your pen and paper and get ready to take some notes. Alright guys, so tip number 1, bring your emergency kit. My anxiety isn't so bad when I have this available because if I feel a pain in my stomach or an urgency to use the toilet, then my kit will take care of everything I physically need in regards to my IBS. Well, for the most part at least. I actually have a video where I show you guys the essentials that I have in my IBS emergency kit. Take a look. An emergency kit carries all of your essentials from medication to wipes and whatever else you consider a necessity. Doesn't matter where you're traveling to. It could be to another country or just down the street to your local grocery store. Having that kit available can make life easier for many of us. Alright, so step number 2, be prepared and mindful. Unfortunately, IBS can attack at any random moment, and sometimes we can't do anything about it, except for acting accordingly. So when or if that happens, it's best to be prepared for it. For instance, make sure to pack your bags a day or two before your planned trip, just in case the day of you're dealing with a lot of pain and having to frequently use the toilet. And by the same token, also give yourself at least a couple of hours the day of to get ready, in case you do have to use a bathroom a couple of times before you leave. In other words, know yourself enough to do whatever it takes to minimize the stress and anxiety the day of your travel. Tip number 3, avoid trigger foods at least for a couple of days before leaving on your trip. This is also a very important tip because you're allowing yourself to possibly not have to deal with any intense flare-ups while traveling. One of the unfortunate aspects for many of us suffering from IBS is that we also suffer from slow digestion, meaning that the food that we ate a day or two ago can negatively affect us at this current moment or even later on. So avoiding trigger foods at least a few days before traveling can certainly minimize the likelihood of dealing with horrible symptoms. And depending on what you're doing for activities, you might also want to avoid trigger foods during your trip as well. Tip number 4. Eat lightly until you reach your destination. I can't stress this point enough. Eating a heavy meal will put you at risk for having an IBS episode. As I mentioned earlier, one of our major concerns is having horrible digestion. So if we consume too much, we're likely going to trigger a few symptoms such as bloating, distension, and intense gas pain. Eating lightly will allow you to have some comfort in your stomach without dealing with intense symptoms. Alright, last but not least, tip number 5, be selective with who you travel with, or be ready to advocate for yourself. Don't plan trips with people who don't understand your limitations due to your condition, or be willing to stand up for yourself when you're not feeling well enough to go out with your friends. And don't let them discourage you from taking care of you first. If you need to stay in one night just so you can recuperate and gather up some energy so you can go out the next night, then do what you gotta do. Take care of you first. Nonetheless, make sure you're traveling with people you're very comfortable with. So, if there's anything that I said that you find helpful or useful, then take it and run with it. If I'm missing anything important, then feel free to comment below and add more tips to the list. If you need me to clarify anything, then ask and you shall receive. I created these simple tips because I want to make sure there's a guide for those who are new to having IBS. I also want to educate those who don't have IBS what it takes for many of us to have to travel as comfortably as possible, or otherwise we're dealing with a whole lot of pain and discomfort while traveling. Well, I hope you guys found at least some of these tips to be helpful. And again, I know a lot of these tips were common sense, but they're not always common practice. So make sure to practice the tips that you found helpful, and let's start getting better at managing our condition. The more we stay on top of our condition, the better we'll get at living with it. So don't give up on yourselves and don't beat yourselves up for not being perfect. Just do the best you can do every day, because that's all that matters. Alright, my positive vibes fam? Well, alright peeps, that's it for the video. So don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, be surrounded by nothing but positive vibes. Peace.